I've been very surprised by some of the reaction to the Brian Williams mess at NBC, Cheryl Atkinson, and a lot of people are saying, well, you know, in the British style, these anchors are just presenters. They just read off the prompter. They're news readers. And in my view, you know, they have to go around the world at a moment's notice. They have to be able to fill airtime during emergencies. They do political conventions. They do live coverage on election night. There are more skills to being an anchor than just reading off of that teleprompter in front of me. And Brian Williams wouldn't be where he is if he was just a reader.
It's an extremely demanding job, not the least of which is the publicity that they have to do, the constant travel and appearances for the job, but also in promoting the job. And one point I'd like to make is, much like politicians, those who end up in those top jobs as the evening news primary anchors are not there just because they have the skills and experience to do so. A lot of people have skills and experience, maybe not at that quality, so they are in the upper echelon, but they also are able to play the game correctly, play the politics, promote themselves, craft a certain image, knock out the competition. It takes a certain kind of person to reach that level.
And I think, like somebody who decides to run for president, it takes a certain, shall we say, healthy ego to see yourself as the guy who's going to be the or woman, excuse me, because Diane Sawyer, Katie Couric, who can be the face of the news division. But I have sat in newsrooms as part of my reporting with people like Katie Couric and Bob Schieffer and Dan Rather, some of the CBS anchors you worked for or with, as well as Brian Williams and Charlie Gibson and others. And, you know, they are in story conferences deciding what pieces should be aired and not aired, and sometimes they are rewriting scripts up to the last minute. And for one reason for that is that they have the title of managing editor, which means they are basically in charge of running the newscast, of which they are the star. And you mentioned on Media Buzz that maybe that's a problem.
Well, there is a reason to ask a question that when you make the primary anchor of the broadcast, who has all those other responsibilities, is the face of the broadcast and your primary talent, and you also put them in charge, technically, of pretty much everything in the broadcast, who works for you, what goes into the program, and all of the scripts. Are you, A, giving them too much to do, and B, are they qualified? I mean, I would argue that just because you have the skills to be an anchor or a news reporter or journalist doesn't mean you have the skills to manage or edit, and many of them probably have never had a management job or an editing job. So then when a controversy comes up, and this isn't the first time that's happened, really are there independent voices around you who have the heft where they're able to question you and maybe reel you in a little bit, or because you have the title as managing editor, are you untouchable? In
your experience at CBS, journalists who were more independent or challenging toward the anchor, what would happen to them in terms of getting on the air?
Good question. I can't say I know that much. I can't really think of reporters that challenge the editor per se. There was a buffer that challenged the anchor. There's a buffer between the anchor and the correspondent.
But is there a suck-up factor?
There is. You want to please the managing editor. You want to please the main anchor, for sure. And some of them, I would say, maybe the way I would put it is they take the managing editor job more seriously than others. Some of them, I think, consider it an honorary title that gives them the right to make some overarching maybe decisions about the types of stories they like and occasionally get involved, but they don't nitpick scripts and so on. Others of them, every step of the way, they want the copy to be as if they wrote it. They want their terminology used. They micromanage from top to bottom. So it depends on the anchor. Right.
Well, to borrow a term from medicine, there is such a thing as a second opinion. No matter how qualified you are to sit in that anchor chair and maybe to be the managing editor. I mean, to bring this back to Brian Williams, when they did that segment that ended up getting all of the Army veterans on that mission upset, where he's at the hockey game and they're honoring the veteran, and he talks about his chopper having been hit by the RPG. A strong managing editor, even if he didn't or she did not know the truth of what happened that day in Iraq in 2003, might have said, do we really want to do this? Is it a little bit self-aggrandizing because it's showing you at the ceremony and you're telling this war story about yourself, which makes you look good? Maybe we ought to spend that 2 minutes on something else. If somebody had done that, Williams would not be facing what he's facing today.
A strong managing editor, I would argue, would have known whether that was the truth or not. It's not like it was a big secret. Also, Brian Williams had help at the production at the sports game, the hockey game. He had help from other people. He didn't edit the videotape, provide the story to Madison Square Garden. Somebody provided the story, wrote it up, gave them the scenario, told them he was coming, gave them still photographs, and so on. So he had help around them as managing editor. He can get that. Maybe he could have gotten it anyway as the anchor, but like you say, without sort of an active force daily that can help oversee and, for his own good, help intervene when necessary. I mean, we've had some great executive producers at CBS who would go to an anchor, I think, and say, for your own good, please stop, or, give them advice that they need to hear.
I guess we'll see whether or not this controversy, however it plays out, will prompt NBC and other networks to maybe change a little bit the way they deal with these anchors. And we are back here next week with more After the Buzz.